black and white. Anyway, here's the plan. I'm sorry, we were supposed to project the images up there, so I'm going to show it from the book itself. You'll have to bear with me. I'm going to, can you turn the music off? Somebody? God is listening. First I'll talk about the pictures in the book, and then I'll get questions from the audience. So if you can hold off until I do my spiel, whatever that is, that would be great. And before I start, I'd just like to say how hard it is to talk about images that I've created. I mean, if I could tell you in words what I want to express, I'd be a writer. But I work with images, and images for me come from a different source. I mean, writing I think comes from here, and the images come from here. So there's a little bit more going on, you know, like music, and it's more of an emotional thing for me. And I know when I look at something, it's a personal thing, and it really doesn't matter what the artist tells me. If the image speaks to me, then, you know, if I get something from it, it's a very personal experience. I remember when I was 16 and I saw Salvador Dali's Melting Clocks, you know that painting? I forgot, this is a very long title, but anyway, yeah. And I thought, wow! And then I heard Salvador Dali speaking about it and I went, oh God. Oh God, it ruined the picture for me. So I hope I don't do that tonight. I hope I don't do it for you guys tonight, but I'm just saying, take what I say with a grain of salt. Because what I have in my head when I do the images may not be what you have in your head when you see them. So that's all I'm saying. Anyway, we shall begin. First picture, please. Aha. I wanted to start out with this one. It's called Portrait of the Artist as a Young Bitch. What page? Oh yeah, page, it's 115.
Oh my God.
All right. The reason I wanted to start out with this image was because it exemplifies what I do. This is a portrait of me, but it isn't. I had a full head of hair when I was a baby, and I'm left-handed. This is not my baby picture. This is a psychological picture of me. I was a very, very cute little girl with big chubby cheeks and big blue eyes. And my mother loved to dress me in little frilly dresses, which was a horror to me because I was a tomboy. And I lived in a very beautiful little suburb in New York, in the beautiful little 60s, and I had a beautiful little family, and I had incredibly anti-Disney feelings swirling around inside of me. I just had a lot of angst and anger, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I discovered drawing. And I was very, very fortunate that my parents allowed me to do it. They didn't censor me. In fact, they were proud of me. I used to bring stuff. I used to say to my mother, oh, look what I've done. And instead of sectioning me, because my work was very bloody and angry, and I had like cowboys and Indians killing each other, World War II, with bombs going off, and inks and devils. And instead of, putting me away in a psychiatric unit, my parents said, oh my God, a genius, wonderful. And they used to take out my work when my aunts and uncles came to visit and go, look what Laurie did. And I'd be sitting in this frilly dress, I was a very polite little girl, very, very polite. And my aunts and uncles would, that's nice. My cousins used to inch away from me a bit, but they just totally encouraged me all the time. I was very, very lucky. And we'll leave that for later. Yeah. This is called, on page 143, Last Night I Dreamt I Murdered Mommy. Yeah. This is, I was living in Bruges at the time, dinosaurs were roaming the earth. And there was a lot of beer in Bruges. I think Bruges has as much beer as Baskin Robbins. So this is the result of a lot of drinking, but still. This is a psychological portrait. And I think of it as this is me, the woman, and this is me, this demon inside of me. That's how I see it. Because other people just see it like, you know, oh my God, what the fuck is going on there? But it's a very old picture. Next slide, please. This is called When the Bough Breaks, another child. And that's page 132. When the bough breaks. My mother had to sing to me every time before I went to sleep, you know, Rockabye Baby. But she had to revise the words. She had to sing, when the bough breaks, the cradle won't fall, and down won't come glory, cradle and all, because who the fuck wants to fall out of a tree in a cradle before you fall asleep? I mean, what's that about? So she revised it for me, but this is not really about childhood. This is about a feeling that sometimes I get at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just fear. It's just terror. This is an image of terror for me. This thing, and that song is a terror-filled song. I don't know who invented it, but anyway. And so that's what this is about. A lot of people call me a surrealist, but I don't use ad hoc dream imagery. This is very intentional. This is intentionally done. So I don't know what I am. A psycho-realist? I have no idea. But anyway. We got next. This is called Death and the Maiden on page 98. Wow. And I did this after my mother died. And it was very interesting. My mother died when I was in my 40s, but it was shocking to me because people treated me like I had some kind of disease. They were very nervous around me, and it was very uncomfortable. And when my relatives came by, they didn't even say the word death. They said we're sorry your mother passed. And it was all very bizarre. It's like never, I mean, I've had people in my family tell me, no one, you know, so close. And the way that death was treated as if it was an awful, disgusting disease was a revelation to me. And about a year later, I had a Spanish friend who said to me, I was living in England at the time, she said, come to Mexico, come to the Day of the Dead Festival, you'll like it. And I said, a festival about death? No, thank you. And she said, come, you will like it, I will take you. That's how she spoke. You will come, now. So, oh, okay. So she took me to Mexico, and they had skulls everywhere, they were happy, you know, they said, oh look, we died, so get over it. You know, and there was candy skulls, and it was dressing like skeletons, and we went on, there were picnics on the graves of the relatives. They, you know, they went and they were having food and drinks, and there was a dead man of the year. This guy was the mayor of a village, and they elected him the dead man of the year, and they bussed everybody in, and he had a room filled with all his tchotchkes, you know, his favorite food, his favorite clothing, his favorite items of, you know, that he loved during life, and a big photograph of him. And then we all came in and we said to the widow, I'm so sorry for your loss. And they gave us a cup of chocolate and a piece of bread. And I thought, why didn't my mother get something like this? What they did with my mother is she died. My father told the hospital to get rid of her because they were both atheists. And that was it. She was disappeared. It was like, you know, in Star Trek with the guy with the red shirt, and, you know, the alien aims the gun at him, and he just totally dissolved. You never know who he was, where he was. His shoes weren't even left by. I mean, the whole, my mother just disappeared, and we had no closure. I'm not religious anymore, but I just wanted some kind of, something to mark her passing. So I thought, wow, this is healthy. This Day of the Dead thing is really, really healthy. I'm going to do something that's against my culture. I'm going to draw about death. And I started to do all this stuff. Day of the Dead, but black and white, because Day of the Dead is very, very colorful. So it was like New York Jewish angst Day of the Dead. But I wanted to retain the humor, which I did. So I did this whole, let me see if I can find it. I did a whole series, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in here about the Day of the Dead, but I'm just going to go to the one that's funny. Where is it? I don't know. There's one that's called Bone China, and it should be around here somewhere.
It's on page 22.
Ah, thank you. $22. Ah, there it is, thank you. So this is Bone China. And it's about people dying. It's a lot of my friends are dying off now. I'm at that age. And this woman is just sort of surrounded by them. And the only things that aren't disintegrating are the Twinkies and the Devil Dogs. And I did a whole series of things like that in London. I was sponsored by the Mexican Embassy. And they had a whole altar, they made a whole altar, and everything was great. And I thought, oh, let's do it in New York, let's do it, you know, let's do it in the US. No one wanted it. Nobody wanted it. And it was funny, I also wanted to find something for my opening that had a skull on it. This was in 2001 or something. Couldn't find a goddamn thing. Now you can't get rid of them. But I mean, it was unbelievable. So, yeah. So that's why I started the Day of the Dead thing. Now, if I could just, I had everything in my PowerPoint thing, you know, in order, and it was all very nice, and I don't know where anything is anymore. Okay. So, I also started drawing about not only death but aging, you know, because I'm a playful kind of girl. This is called Mirror, Mirror. And it's on page 97. And you can't really see it in this book, but she's aging as the mirror goes back, and at the end of the mirror, there's an old woman looking straight at her. I just found it interesting, you know, the whole thing with looking at yourself, the different cells you leave behind in the mirror is a good example of that, you know, it freezes bits of you, and as you go back. This is another one of aging. It's called Second Childhood on page 141. It's this one. These are older ones. And, oh, you can't see it. You could have seen it up there, but you can't see it in here. These are all clocks in the wallpaper and webs. I'm just getting their thoughts now. All right, this is another thing about being cute but having all this shit inside you. called Pandora's Box. And I don't know if you know about the myth of Pandora. It's a Greek myth. And Pandora was given a box and told not to open it. So of course she did. She did, and she let loose all the horrors of Hades into the world. And what I did in this is, this I did with my left hand because I'm left-handed. And then she's also in a box. And I drew the same scene, only with my right hand on the box, like a little cartoon. It's hard to notice this stuff, you know, unless I point it out to you, but... All right. Bear with me. Oh, I might as well just... I was living in Europe for 36 years, and we had public transportation there. And, and also, I didn't need to drive. I just didn't need to. It would have been silly to drive. So I moved to LA a couple of years ago, and people said, you have to drive. And I said, why? You get buses? I said, yeah, but they're not connected up. I said, drive. And I said, I don't want to drive. He said, you have to drive. I said, I don't want to drive. I said, you have to drive. And I said, no, why don't you just pick me up? I started losing friends. Like crazy. But I'm too old to learn it. Anyway, so this is my first impression of LA. I love LA, by the way, and I'm very glad I'm here. But this is called Round and Round. And this is on page... it's on the cover, but this is a better image of it. It's on page 35. Round and Round. And it's very interesting to me that a lot of Californians are into health and they exercise and eat well, and yet they're killing themselves with particulates from their automobiles. It causes cancer, by the way. Rise up and demand public transport. Rise up and demand public transport. So this was my first impression of LA. I mean, that was this. And this is called The Illusion of Control Tower. And I just made a 12-foot long one. It's hanging in the Ace Gallery, Beverly Hills. I don't know if you're allowed to say another gallery when you're in another gallery, but still. The Illusion of Control Tower. It's on page... Why don't that page numbers on this one? On page 31. And this was inspired. I saw a thing about the German Zeppelin planes. It was a documentary, and the Hindenburg was the height of modern technology. They had all the gadgets, all the doodads, and everyone was dressed up, and it was fancy schmancy, and everyone got on this plane, and it exploded. And I thought, that's just like life. You know, you got all these doodads, you got all this control, this illusion of control, and boom. It's all, none of these gadgets have a dial on them, they're all blank. And my original idea was, there was a huge plane coming towards them, but then I thought that's too obvious, so I just left it blank. But anyway, go see the 12-foot one in Ace. It's really impressive, if I do say so myself. And this is called Augmental. This is also about control. You know, in your online gaming. I mean, this is already out of date. But and in his eyes, he's tearing a woman's head off. It's about, you know, the violent games. And let me see, what else we got here? Oh yeah, I like this one. It was a pain to do that. This is called Surveillance, and that's on page 39. first glance, you think that he's looking at, he's surveilling other people, but he's really looking at himself, looking at himself, looking at himself. And I thought, that's a neat idea. Why don't I do that? But it was a pain. Oh my God, it was so horrible to do. Because I had to keep going into this, I had to keep going. He's looking at himself, looking at himself. So, oh, Jesus. Every time I walked into the studio, my heart sank. Oh my God, how many more screens do I have to do? Oh Lord. And this was another one that was hideous to do, but a good idea. This is called Delusion Dwellers. This one here. On page 69. And I tried to make this as ambiguous as possible. They could be in a movie theater, they could be in a church. Go later. But there's one guy, so you can't see it that well here. You could have seen it if it was projected. There's one guy in the row, maybe you can find him, who's looking directly at the viewer, and it really is freaky. I think, yeah. I'm not telling you.
The ballroom.
And let me see. Oh yes, this one is called The Fates. I've also done this, and it's huge. It's 6 foot by 8 foot. I also had pictures in my PowerPoint of me drawing this, because then you can see the scale. I'm on ladders. And every single person is drawn individually. These are million people going through the room, and even in the background, it's practically a CD.
What page is that?
Oh, sorry. It's 19. And I'm sorry that my PowerPoint thing didn't play out, but that's generally what I meant to say. And if there's any questions you have or anything you'd like to ask me pertaining to my artwork, then I'll be glad to answer. Anybody?
Tell me about the ballroom scene that was just before the mortgage you're talking about. Which was it, the ballroom?
The one with the Disney shows.
I just love them dancing. You were just in the page before that. And I loved it.
Well, it was just part of the Day of the Dead stuff. I don't know what page it's on. I did a show about a couple of them about the Day of the Dead, and I just used a couple of those themes.
On page 42,
Me.
the enhanced,
Oh, yeah.
is that another not self-portrait?
I did have to use my face for that. And I had to sit there like this. Oh, yeah. Well, I did a show when I first moved here on LA called LA Surreal, S-O-U-S, instead of surreal, which means underneath reality. And I was, oh, there it is. This one. I was having lunch with 5 women from the ages of 30 to 50, and I was the oldest. Every single person at that table had work done. And they didn't look younger, they just looked odd. And I was the youngest. I'm not saying this because I think, oh, and I was, seriously, I did look the youngest at the table. It was very funny. And I thought, why are they doing that? I mean, yeah. I mean, it just looked odd, like aliens. So that inspired this.
What about the image across from the one called Second Childhood? It's an image of a blonde-haired woman holding a sort of spooky baby. Did I get Second Childhood? Did I get that title?
No, it's another one.
I don't know. Maybe I'll find it and come back. Sorry.
Oh, you mean this one?
Yeah.
That's called Mum's the Word.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, the cute child wanting to scream. I had issues. And the mother has sewn the child's mouth closed.
I guess my question is, I find the image of the woman very evocative, and I know, like you said, your meetings aren't necessarily literal or something you could spell out, but can you describe the feelings that went into the depiction of the woman holding the baby? Was there any
Can
kind
you
of spirit?
describe the feelings?
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of like very all-American, but in a sort of gothic and creepy, like Dust Bowl way. That's the vibe I got. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I tried to use a kind of Victorian, kind of impressed kind of imagery. And I really got into the wallpaper. Yes.
Do you use any kind of reference to work from, or do you draw to your imagination?
That's a good question. Sometimes when I really need to find out what the light is doing, I will make a still life. I have all these dolls. And at one point I was living in the basement in London, and you could sort of look down through these, there was like, you know, a grill, like a grate, and then I was in the basement, and I had set up a doll still life, and I lit it, and it was all these, you know, and I was like this, and suddenly I looked up, and there were 5 people looking down, like this English people in the rain, sort of like that. But it's mostly for my imagination. Sometimes if I need like a coffee machine to look real, then I'll get a reference picture. But it's interesting, a lot of kids, a lot of people, they contact me online and go, look at my drawing, it's a copy from a photograph. And I keep saying, you know, that's such as a photograph isn't enough. And I usually use the photograph as a reference point, but I never want to copy the photograph. I usually Liptonize it. I usually put it into my own imagination because it looks so dead, copying the photograph. I don't know. A lot of people do that, you know. Yes.
You use.
I know.
Hi. You use a Victorian look a lot in your work. What's that about?
Well, Victorian and American repression are practically the same. I find it's very funny. I keep saying to people, you know, I left this country in 1976 and I came back in 1952. I think I took the wrong plane. But the repression of emotions, where I came from anyway, is very Victorian. It's very, you know, stick up or what's it, you know? And I find there's a lot of, you know, that's those posed photographs and things. The same as the posed photographs in my family, only different costumes.
Would that be the reason you use the 50s look so much?
Yeah, and the 50s looks as well, yeah. Yeah. The Happy Housewives, yes.
How long did it take you to draw the 6 foot by 8 foot one that you were talking about?
Too long. I don't go out much. In fact, how am I doing? You know, with people. It takes a very long time, but I work every day for a very long time. So
Weeks?
months,
Years?
months. No, not years. Otherwise, I'd starve to death.
What's the longest you've ever spent on it?
5 months.
I really like that one-piece Democracy.
Yeah.
Page 44.
Yeah.
I was just wondering what was going through your head and maybe what was going on politically at the time.
44.
Maybe what your philosophy is, yeah. I believe it was
Well, I was living in England where, you know, the BBC, they're not allowed to be biased because it's owned by the public. And we pay a license fee to watch television. I know it's nuts, but they're not allowed to be biased. So when there's political discussion, this. It's well-rounded and it's intelligent and they actually talk about issues. And then I came here and I watched the GOP debate on television. And I had never seen it on television before, ever. And it's so loud. And I thought, what's going on here? It's like, you know, they're treating us like 5-year-olds. What kind of, this is not even a political debate. They're just throwing things at each other, like, you know, a kindergarten. So I just got pissed off. And so this is practically the only literally political thing that I've ever done. But yeah, that's what that was about. This is my first election here, ever.
Who are some of your influences?
Diane Arbus, the black and white photographs, and Flemish masters, Van Eyck, Memling, Rembrandt, Dürer. Anyone who can draw.
Are you a fan at all of Edward Gorey?
He's cartoony. He's cute.
Some of the detail work that he just got me to be a fan of his.
I'm familiar with this stuff.
When you start these, do you have it mapped out already, or is there a part of it that you know that you're going to do, and the rest, sometimes other things appear, or you know, like, you know, when you write, sometimes people show up. So does that happen to you?
That's a very good question. Well, while I'm working, because these things take so long, I have a notebook, and ideas come into my head, and I either jot down a title or do a very vague sketch. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let me pull up something, and this is a good example. Hang on a sec. I can't find my housewives. Where are they?
Go right here.
Oh, here. I got it. Okay. Page 58 and 59. These things. So an idea will pop into my head. A woman with a fridge. A happy housewife with a fridge. Just pop into my head. Okay? After these two came together, this is called off and this is called on. And so then I do a very vague sketch. And then, when I put it on the paper, I do a cartoon, an outline. And because I was not taught a goddamn thing in the best art university in the USA, Carnegie Mellon University paid a lot of money, taught me nothing. I went in the mid-70s when conceptual art was the fashion, and they said I wasn't allowed to do figurative work because it was silly. So I cut my classes, and I tried to teach myself composition and perspective. And it didn't work. I still had trouble with perspective. So I'm erasing for like a month before I even start doing the details. So I'm erasing to make it look good. I just have to make it look right. I don't know how I'm managing it, but I'm trying. Someone taught me recently, a big mural painter, because I'm doing these huge drawings. You know, you can't fake perspective in a huge drawing. It really shows up. So this guy showed me this string thing that he does, and I thought, why didn't they tell me this at university? It would have cut out weeks of work. Anyway, so I do the cartoon of a woman standing with a fridge, and then I start getting into it, like writing. I have the bare bones, and then I start going around. I start with the face, always. Start with the face. And then the face makes for clothing. And then the clothing makes everything else. It's like acting almost. And then the picture starts making its own sense. And instead of just a fridge, all this stuff is going on. Because I'm beginning to relax into the picture. It's like almost sinking into a warm, bubbly bath. Just go down, down. And I try to shut my brain off. I used to do it with drugs and drink, but then I didn't have any brain left, so I had to stop. So now I do it with music and BBC iPlayer. The BBC has these radio plays. They're great. It's like watching television in your head. So my hand can just go, and my head's going somewhere else. And I could sit there for hours and not know it. That's why when someone asks me, how long does a drawing take you? I have no idea. I'm just not there. It's wonderful. It's legal drugs. It's wonderful. It's great. And also, people ask me, why do you work so much? It's not work. I used to waitress. That's work. This is bliss. It's total bliss. So, yeah, that's how it develops slowly, and I go round and around, and I just dig deeper and deeper and deeper until I'm finally into her little, even the shoes, even the shoelaces, I have threads coming out, and that's how, the shoes. And that's the minutest, I have ants crawling. I mean, I just get into it and into it and into it until I can't get into it anymore, and then it's done. So it's a process.
When you say you can't get into it anymore and it's done, does that mean that you're over it? Or you step back and go, oh, no, don't put anything else on it, it's done?
No, I can't put anything else on it.
There's nowhere else to put it.
No, I know by now what's possible, and if I overdo it, you can't, I know. I know when to stop. I didn't know when to stop in the beginning, but now I do. Maybe not, I don't know, they look pretty chunky to me, I don't know.
Your depictions of wires and machinery, because they're so intricate. I mean, are you using a frame of reference for that, or is that just all?
No, wires, you can just go for it.
Wow.
Yeah, no, you can just go for it. No, in fact, I just finished something, it's also in the Ace Gallery. A huge thing with a phone, just an arm holding an iPhone. And it's called Wired, and it's on my Facebook page, and it's 6 foot by 7 foot or something, and every wire you can follow it around. It's insane. It's totally insane. Even I thought it was insane. But it's great. I mean, I love doing, maybe I was a monk in the Middle Ages or something. I just love doing that little tiny, just getting in it to see if I can do it. Can I make 100 million bricks? Maybe there's something inside me trying to kill me, I don't know. But I love doing that. Anybody else? Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry about that.